Fortunate to be able to call upon the expertise of Chad Budreau of the Academy of Model Aeronautics. In the drone space, from what we've been able to see so far, there are two powerhouse organizations, AMA on the hobby and recreational drone side, and AUVSI obviously on the commercial side.
Right.
Chad, let's talk about the state of the industry as far as AMA sees it at this point. What's happening out there?
Sure. So the industry's changing. As a matter of fact, I'm sure you were at the keynote where Administrator Huerta was talking about how quickly this industry is moving. And he shared a stat that every 10 to 15 years, there's a new platform in manned aviation, whereas every year we see at least 10 to 15 in the UAS industry each year. So it's moving quickly, and regulators are really trying to grapple this industry and how they can keep the airspace safe. So we're seeing, as I mentioned earlier, new platforms out on this showroom floor. Some exciting new stuff here. So the industry is moving quickly. Regulators are trying to figure it out. And the end users are kind of caught in the middle of wanting to engage in this new technology and use it, and still kind of keep an eye as to what regulators are doing.
Puts AMA in a really interesting spot because to a certain extent, the hobby drone industry has been one, innovative,
right,
two, pervasive, and three, just no end in sight. And yet there's no question that whatever regulatory environment ultimately arises from here based on what's happened so far has to include a phenomenal population of hobby drone users. Puts you in the hot seat, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And our perspective, if you go back even to 2010, 2012, when we were working on the special rule for model aircraft, that rule really isn't designed to be a get out of jail free card for hobbyists. The intent is everyone still must fly responsibly, must fly safely, must comply with regulations. But there's a carve-out stating that if you operate within the programming of a community-based organization, so within and you follow the programming, so if you're an AMA member, for example, and you're competing in a national competition, there's a carve-out where you can operate above and beyond some of the guidelines of the FAA, in coordination with the FAA, of course. Mm-hmm. It was never designed to be a situation where hobbyists can go fly like the Wild West, mm-hmm, wherever they intended. They still have to be held accountable to a group like the AMA. So when we see hobbyists out there, that's kind of the message we want to take in, is that we want to encourage that. We want to foster growth. We want to get people out here who are excited, who are hobbyists. Get in, come fly, but be responsible. And either join a group like the AMA, join a group like AUVSI, follow FAA rules, do it responsibly.
From, excuse me, from your exposure so far here at AUVSI, what are the lessons, excuse me, good grief, that you take out of this trade show that your membership needs to know?
One, this industry is moving very quickly. It's moving at a rapid pace.
Light speed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Two is that there are a lot of members who enjoy this hobby. We have a lot of fun flying in our backyard, and we're now learning I can make a living doing this. I can get paid to have fun. So almost every minute, I don't want to say every minute, but it's nonstop encounters with members here at this show who are saying, here's some exciting stuff I'm doing. Here's a startup I'm launching, or here's a company that just hired me to fly. So we're seeing a lot of crossover of members who are hobbyists who are now doing commercial work.
It's interesting. I've got a number of friends in the hobby drone community up in the Jacksonville area who are now working commercially. Some are doing some pretty heavy duty work right now. But the skill set that they've learned in working with RC and working with the early hobby drone segment and then maturing to where it is now has been quite valuable to them in regards to going out and finding work.
Right, exactly. And that's when you can go to an employer or any of these booths out here and state, I've been flying UAS for 30 years, for 10 years.
Yeah.
That has a lot of credibility. And
it does indeed.
You'll capture their interest. And then to couple that and say, not only that, but I've been flying under a strict safety code, and can demonstrate your pre-flight checklist and how you really take safety and responsibility as a high priority.
We've had this conversation before where the pluses and minuses seem to be fighting each other out for prominence. What do you see right now as the more positive aspects of what's occurring at the moment, and where do you see concerns?
So let's end on the promising, because that's always a better note to end on. Some of the concerns we're seeing is frustration with the legislative level. On the city, local level, state level, federal level. They're really trying to wrap their head around how to keep the airspace safe, but also people and property on the ground safe.
Although some of it's been horrendously arbitrary.
Oh, exactly.
One real estate person gets themselves in a knit, and they convince the entire city council to come up with absolutely draconian drone restrictions until everybody finds out it's one person with one complaint.
Well, you go along the New Jersey shoreline. You start at the very top.
Yeah.
There's a group of students who used model aircraft for a STEM application, and they won awards and accolades for that. You go all the way down to the southern part of New Jersey, and they're rolling out the welcome mat. They want to become the hub, the new Silicon Valley of UAS. But right in the middle, there's a community that they're really trying to wrestle with how to regulate this, almost to the point where they essentially ground the entire community and just shut down any UAS activity. So you see great use cases, and then you see those who are really trying to struggle with it. And it is very problematic.
We were talking to Earl Lawrence yesterday about the issues involved in preemption, and a number of other people. Of course, we talked to Brian Wynne as well. That's not an issue that's going to be solved anytime soon, and yet ultimately it has a simple solution. There just has to be a dividing line.
Are you talking about dividing line in the air?
Yes.
So that's interesting, because I sit on the DAC subcommittee, and I'm part of a task group, and that task group is designed to figure out the roles and responsibilities of state and local government. Because you're right, maybe there is a middle ground somewhere. Yeah. Right now, the law of the land is federal preemption. Everything from a blade of grass up is FAA and FAA exclusive.
Just needs to be properly defined.
Exactly. Maybe there's a middle ground, and does that mean an imaginary line in the sky, or does that mean empowering local law enforcement? We don't,
Yeah. It just needs to be understood.
And I would encourage your viewers to keep a close eye on the DAC, the Drone Advisory Committee. This year, we're really tasked to start releasing some initial guidance as to where that balance is with this task group. So you're right, there is a middle ground probably somewhere, and hopefully we identify that sooner than later.
How is AMA's role in all this evolving? I think to a certain extent, everybody got caught a little bit by surprise by how this industry exploded. I guess is the only proper word for it. Although, well, you guys certainly stepped in fairly quickly, and on top of it, made a bunch of very good moves at a time when it was critical to do so. But how is this role evolving for you right now?
So it's interesting. This is not our first rodeo. We've been around for 80 years. Before control line. And so we learned how to embrace control line. We were around before remote control, and remote control was a game shifter. And there were a lot of people who were concerned about how can that be safe, and how can we do it safely? How can someone control a model without actually? So, and then you get into different platforms such as helicopters and electrics. So this is not the first time a new platform's been introduced. But with that being said, this is obviously a major game changer. So we are trying to be much more nimble and writing safety programming to accommodate this. And that means attending trade shows like this so we could see what's the next new innovation, so we could start preparing our safety programming to accommodate that new platform. So that's one way we're being nimble. We're also relying more on our partnerships with groups like you, partnerships with other manufacturers, and having close working relationships with those, so we could have a close ear to the ground as to what's on the horizon, what's coming down. And then being involved at the legislative level. More than ever before, we're working closely with federal groups such as the Drone Advisory Committee, but even industry-led groups like the UAS safety team.
I would imagine it's got to be kind of an extraordinary juggling act at times. But AMA in particular has quantified a specific rationale for now and worked some amazing programs between Know Before You Fly and so forth that have allowed some people to at least retain some sanity as we go forward and try to build an industry that just seems to have no end in sight. The partnership angle to me seems critical,
right.
and I'm glad to see that. So let's talk about the ultimate partnership here.
Right.
FAA, how are they doing?
You know, Part 107. We're glad to see that come out.
Mm-hmm.
That was encouraging. 333, Section 333. I get the intent with that, but it did stifle innovation. It did stifle use, and 107 really was a great component to this industry that the FAA announced. So we're seeing the FAA becoming more and more nimble than they ever have, just like AMA is. I mean, you have to. This industry's moving quickly.
You have no choice.
Exactly.
Drag kicking and screaming maybe, but definitely you have no choice.
Well, and what's happening is it's forcing other companies to go overseas and start developing their products and testing their products. And America really, we're a global society now, but we like to keep some of that innovation here as much as we can. But the FAA is trying to accommodate that. So on that hand, yes, we see the FAA being very nimble, and we're very glad to see those components come out. There's some things we don't see eye to eye on, and I think that's part of any healthy relationship. There's some areas that we have concerns with, and some of the things in their interpretive rule of the special rule model aircraft that we don't see eye to eye on. So we're going to continue to work through those issues. But no matter the outcome, we're participating in the airspace, and that involves cooperation and coordination with the FAA.
For those looking for more information on the hobby drone side, how can they reach out to AMA? What programs does AMA have in return that reaches out to them?
So in terms of the AMA, there are quite a few member benefits. For one, we talked about just being part of a community, of a safe community that is looking at integrating new technology. We integrated new technology, as I mentioned, for years. So as these new platforms are coming out, we're often the first ones to put it down on paper. Here's a safe way to implement it. And those ideas are often adopted at the state and local and federal level. So being part of that ground floor is important. The camaraderie, the accountability that comes with AMA, joining a club, there's some great benefits with that. The insurance is another great benefit. The advocacy. Often when we go to talk to other legislators, or when we're at the door of the FAA, or we're part of the Drone Advisory Committee, we are the largest group of users out there speaking for the hobbyist community.
By far.
And even some of the commercial community. There is more and more of that crossover where our members are doing commercial work. So being part of the AMA, you're part of that voice, and you can help shape that voice. We listen to when members call, email, tweet us. We do engage with each one of those, and we share some of those. We feed that up to the very top.
I've noticed in working with your leadership and many people throughout the organization that there is a strong, cohesive mission in place, but that everybody is involved. It's an unusually, I wouldn't just say hardworking, but effective organization. And we work with over 100 different organizations in the aviation and aerospace arena, and it's nice to see one that just plain works. And the funny part is, it's an organization that for me, I've been a part of since I was a kid. So glad to see it continue the way it has in the past and going forward. How can people reach out directly to get membership and other information from AMA?
Go to our website, modelaircraft.org. It's a great starting point. If you go to knowbeforeyoufly.org, we mentioned AUVSI being a great leader in this industry. We've partnered with AUVSI on a few efforts, including Know Before You Fly. And if you go to that website, you'll see a map. And that map will showcase where where our AMA clubs are located. You can punch in your zip code, you can find a club. So not only going to our website, but go to an AMA flying site, talk to some of the members, and they can really, there's a great resource there.
The clubs are amazing. When I was a kid growing up, we literally had one of our local FAA guys in the club, Dick Klaus, and a number of other people from my age all the way up to the old gray-haired crowd, and it was such an interesting dynamic. And the funny part is, I'm still friends with so many of those people today. It's really quite remarkable. It's an interesting microcosm of aviation society, for lack of a better way to put it.
Exactly.
Alrighty. Well, I'll tell you what, folks, we're going to be coming up here on a short break. I want to thank Chad for joining us, and also let's keep in mind that AMA is our partner on the AMA Drone Report. You can access that at www.amadronereport.com, if I can say it. We look forward to seeing you back here in just a few moments. We are at XPONENTIAL 2017 at the K. Bailey Hutchison Convention Center in Dallas, Texas.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the Association for Unmanned Vehicle Systems International's XPONENTIAL 2017, live from Dallas, Texas, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors. Continental Motors Group. Manned and unmanned, Continental has been a pivotal part of aviation and aerospace history and wants to be a part of your mission. Gas or diesel, certified or experimental, Continental is investing in your future. www.continentalmotors.aero.
Let Patrick Neal & Associates provide the legal expertise needed to navigate the commercial UAS industry. Whether it be waivers, exemptions, operational plans, or other issues, we can provide the guidance you need to keep flying and building your successful UAS operation. www.droneattorneys.us.
In collaboration with NASC, introducing Sonix Aerospace, bringing you the Taros Group 4 UAS, the redesigned Tiger Shark Block 4, and the Subsonics Twin Jet UAS, all derived from flight-proven manned systems, not concepts, real aircraft. More at sonixaerospace.com.